Nvidia is recovering after it sold off over $500 billion in market value earlier this week. Joining us now, Tony Wang, T. Rowe Price portfolio manager. Tony, great to have you with us.
Great. Thanks for having me.
It's unclear what the ROI on an AI investment is, but it is clear that companies are willing to spend on the hardware, at least at this point. How do you think about just the rush to spend and the possibility of pull forward of demand for Nvidia?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think that in general, the companies that are spending see a lot of ROI here, and there's a reason why they are deploying so much capital in a pretty austere environment. And so I think that, there are a lot of companies that are experimenting and prototyping, but generally how it works is that you are trying to experiment with a small number of GPUs before you really deploy into inferencing and really spend a lot of money. And so I do think that we are seeing a lot of use cases with drug discovery, with autonomous driving, with like optimization of logistics, as well as if you look at ChatGPT, it's like really ubiquitous in terms of like so many use cases that it could be deployed on. So I do think that we are starting to see the ROI. Obviously, we need to see more ROI given the amount of capital that's being spent, but I'm optimistic for the long term here.
When do you start thinking about the AI halo? And investing in the companies that stand to see the best ROI or the increasing ROI based on this spend?
Yeah, I think that, I look for, in many ways, like, what are we seeing tangible results, right? So you're seeing that in many ways, like Meta, for example, they're finding a lot of better ways to produce better ROI for advertising, for example. And so that's one area where you see the numbers going up. It's earnings based and it's not multiples. And so I think you're seeing areas where there is tangible improvement. And, I think that what I look for is like, where are there going to be long-term earnings revisions? And so it's not just multiple and valuation that's driving these stocks.
In the shorter term, are we just destined to see software, for instance, come under pressure as companies, parse out their CapEx and spend it on AI and cut back in other areas?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, usually what happens is that the secular narrative gets a little bit overblown. I think there's definitely a lot of cyclical pressures. But in general, I think that software has had such a really great run. And during, times where budgets are expanding, I think software can do well. And times when things are tightening, I think it's more challenging. And so I think largely we do see cyclical pressures. But over the long term, I think that there are areas where there's questions where generative AI can change the software model to go from perhaps seat-based to consumption. And so it'll be really interesting to see how these companies make that transition, as well as looking at new entrants that perhaps offer a more generative AI first model. And so definitely an exciting space where there's going to be a lot of change. And so for active management, we're looking forward to that.
Tony, you're the PM of the Science and Technology Equity Strategy. And so I'm wondering, at this point, I would imagine that the portfolio that you manage is a little bit more tilted towards technology because that's where the returns are. Biotech and science has not been as, great of a winner. When do you make that shift? Because we are seeing some green shoots come up in biotech. We're seeing some big moves on some drug discovery headlines. And, of course, you've got Lilly and Novo being just juggernauts.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're definitely more focused on the tech part, but we do also own some healthcare stocks like Eli Lilly. And so like you said, I mean, that's a really great story with GLP-1s. And so, I think that my focus primarily is tech, and that's where we're seeing, good opportunities in this stage of the cycle. And the innovation that we're seeing around in AI, I think that we're seeing a very, quite impressive list of companies that we can invest in there.
Yeah, and then, of course, yesterday you had the headline that Lilly's going to use AI to help find, a treatment for antimicrobial bacteria or bacteria that are resistant to antibiotics. So you got the convergence of the two biggest stories, right, going on in the market.
Yeah, I think that there's tech and science, or science and tech.
Weight loss.